The starving stranger. The night was cold in the marketplace of New Terra. Neon lights flickered weakly, casting strange shadows on the cracked pavement. The air smelled of metal, oil, and stale food. The streets, once busy with traders from different worlds, were now quiet. Fear had taken over the city after the border wars. People no longer trusted anyone who looked different from them. In a dark corner near an old food stall, a figure crouched low. A hood hid the face, but the trembling hands gave away the truth. The figure was hungry, desperately hungry. The growl of an empty stomach echoed softly in the alley. People passing by noticed the figure, but looked away. Some whispered harsh words. Another alien beggar. Why don't they just leave? No place for them here. The figure remained still. The hunger was sharp, but the shame was sharper. The cloak shifted slightly, revealing pale, bluish skin and thin fingers that shook from weakness. Jack Harmon stood behind his food cart, a few feet away. He sold warm rolls and grilled meat to workers finishing late shifts. His night had been slow. He saw the cloaked figure out of the corner of his eye. He could have looked away like everyone else, but he didn't. The figure's shoulders were too thin. The way they sat, knees drawn close, reminded Jack of a stray dog he once found as a child. Back then, he had given the dog water and food. The dog had wagged its tail with silent, desperate gratitude. Jack took a warm bread roll from his cart. The dough was soft, and steam rose from the center. He stepped forward, walking carefully so he wouldn't scare the stranger. "Hey," he said softly. The figure flinched. The hood tilted upward. Two eyes, wide and shining, stared at him. The pupils were large, dark, and filled with fear. "Hungry?" Jack asked, holding out the bread. The figure hesitated. The smell of warm food made the alien's breathing quicken. Slowly, a hand reached out, fingers trembling, and took the roll. The stranger bit into the bread with desperate, hurried movements. Crumbs fell to the ground, ignored. Jack didn't move. He watched silently. The alien woman, he realized now it was a woman, ate like someone who hadn't tasted real food in days. "Thank you," she whispered when the bread was gone. Her voice was strange, with a soft, musical tone underneath the words. But the fear was still there too. "You're welcome," Jack said. He was about to offer more food when a sharp voice interrupted. "Step away from the alien." Jack turned. Two city guards approached, their boots loud on the pavement. Their armor glinted under the streetlights. One guard gripped a stun baton that hummed softly. The other held a scanner that beeped when pointed at the woman. "She's unregistered," the guard said, his voice cold. "Illegal presence. Step aside, citizen." The alien woman pulled her hood lower and tried to stand. Her legs shook, and she collapsed again, too weak to run. Jack's heart pounded. The law was clear. Humans who helped unregistered aliens could be fined or arrested. He remembered the news broadcasts showing aliens as dangerous invaders. But this woman didn't look dangerous. She looked helpless. The guard with the baton stepped closer. "Last warning," he said. "Move away." Jack made a decision in a single heartbeat. "No," he said. The guards froze, surprised. Jack bent down, grabbed the alien woman's arm, and helped her to her feet. The guards recovered quickly. "Stop him," one shouted. Jack pulled the woman with him and ran. The market came to life behind them. Shouts, orders, the heavy stomp of boots. Jack led the alien woman through narrow side streets, past locked shops and silent droids. His breath burned in his chest. The woman stumbled beside him, but didn't let go of his hand. "This way," Jack said, turning sharply into a smaller alley. The guards' footsteps grew louder. Red searchlights lit the walls around them. "There's no escape," the woman gasped, voice tight with exhaustion. "We'll find one," Jack said. Ahead was a metal fence with jagged edges. Jack's heart sank. He looked back. The guards were turning the corner. One raised a stun rifle. "We're trapped," the woman whispered. The guard aimed the rifle. Jack braced himself. The woman lifted her free hand. A small glowing device in her palm lit up with soft blue light. The air around them shimmered. The guard fired. The blue light expanded like a wave, bending the air. The stun blast curved mid-flight and slammed into a trash bin instead. Jack's mouth dropped open. The woman tightened her grip on his hand. "Run," she said. The fence behind them shimmered. Jack realized it wasn't solid anymore. They ran straight through it, as if passing through mist. Behind them, the guard stopped, shouting in confusion. The street on the other side was dark and empty. Jack slowed, breathing hard. What was that?" he asked. The woman swayed on her feet, pale and exhausted. "Technology," she said softly. "From my people." Jack stared at her. "Who are you?" The woman's lips pressed together. Then she whispered, "My name is Lorana, and I shouldn't be here." Far away, the faint sound of sirens grew louder. They weren't safe yet. The choice. The distant wail of sirens grew louder, echoing off the metal walls of the narrow street. Jack Harmon stood frozen for a moment, heart pounding in his chest. Beside him, Lorana swayed on her feet, her breathing shallow, eyes unfocused. The glowing blue device in her palm dimmed, then went dark. Jack tightened his grip on her arm. "We need to move," he said. Lorana didn't respond. Her knees gave out, and Jack barely caught her before she collapsed onto the ground. He looked around desperately. The alley was empty for now, but the sirens meant the guards were closing in. They wouldn't stop until they had her. Unregistered aliens were considered dangerous, a threat to human safety. And after what Lorana had just done, vending a stun blast midair with strange technology, they would see her as more than a threat. They would see her as a weapon. "Come on, stay with me," Jack said. He shifted her weight against his side and half-dragged her toward the end of the alley. His legs ached, and his breath came in sharp gasps, but he didn't stop. His mind raced with questions. Who was she? How had she done that with her device? Why was she so weak? More importantly, why did he care? He could have stepped aside when the guards came. He could have walked away like everyone else. Helping an alien meant trouble, big trouble. But when he saw her sitting there, starving and alone, something inside him wouldn't let him walk away. Ahead, the alley opened into a wider street. Jack hesitated, peeking around the corner. The street was brighter here, with flickering neon signs advertising cheap goods and half-broken repair droids. Across the street stood an old storage facility with a rusted metal door. Jack remembered it from years ago. An abandoned shelter used during the last days of the border wars. The city had shut it down, but if he could get inside, they might have a chance to rest. "Hold on, Lorana," he whispered. He waited for a break in the passing patrol drones. When the nearest drone floated past, its red scanner lights sweeping the ground, Jack hurried across the street. The storage door was sealed with an old keypad lock. "Of course," Jack muttered. He shifted Lorana's weight and tried to pry the door open. It didn't budge. The sirens were closer now. The drones would double back soon. Suddenly, Lorana stirred. Her eyes opened slightly. Without a word, she lifted her hand and pressed the device against the keypad. The blue light reappeared, flickering weakly. The keypad beeped twice. The door clicked open. Jack didn't ask questions. He pulled the door open, dragged her inside, and closed it behind them. The air inside was cold and stale. Old emergency supplies were scattered across the floor, along with broken cots and cracked water containers. Jack helped Lorana to the nearest cot and eased her down. She collapsed onto the thin mattress, eyes closed, breathing uneven. He knelt beside her. "Lorana, can you hear me?" She didn't respond. Jack cursed under his breath. He found an old emergency blanket on the floor and covered her with it. Then he sat back, rubbing his face with both hands. Outside, the sirens passed by. For now, They were safe, but it wouldn't last. Hours later, the soft sound of breathing pulled Jack from his restless thoughts. He looked over. Lorana's eyes were open, watching him. "You stayed," she said softly. Jack blinked. "Yeah, I guess I did." "You shouldn't have." Jack gave a half shrug. "Well, here we are." Lorana shifted, sitting up slowly. Her hands trembled, but she didn't fall. The blue veins on her pale skin pulsed faintly beneath the surface. "You need food," Jack said. "I need more than that," she whispered. "But food would help." Jack stood and searched the room. In a dusty metal cabinet, he found old ration packs. The packaging was brittle, but the contents were edible. He brought one to her. She opened the pack with shaky fingers and bit into the dry protein bar. She ate slowly this time, her expression tense as if she feared someone might snatch the food away. Jack sat down across from her. "Want to tell me what's going on?" he asked. Lorana swallowed. She didn't meet his gaze. "I'm stranded. On New Terra." She nodded. "My team came here before the war. We were scientists. We studied Earth's ecosystem to help rebuild the damage humans caused. But when the war started, humans turned on us." Her voice cracked slightly. "They killed my team. I hid." Jack felt a cold weight in his chest. The border wars had been brutal. Propaganda had painted all aliens as invaders. People like Lorana, who came in peace, had been caught in the crossfire. "You've been hiding alone since then?" he asked. "Yes, years." She looked at the empty ration pack. "No one ever helped me. Until you." Jack didn't know what to say. Outside, the world had moved on from the war, but the scars remained. Aliens were still treated like dangerous outsiders. Lorana wasn't the first alien to starve in the shadows, but she might be the first with technology that could change things. The blue device in her palm flickered again. Jack's eyes dropped to it. "What is that thing?" "A phase shift key," Lorana said. "It bends energy fields." Jack whistled softly. "And the guards want it." "They don't care about the key," she said. "They want me. I know things that could help rebuild the planet. But fear is easier than trust." The sirens returned, faint but growing louder again. "They're searching building by building," Jack said. Lorana sat up straighter. "They'll find us soon." Jack stood and paced. If the guards caught them, they'd take Lorana. They'd lock him up too, or worse. He turned back to her. "If you can reach your people, would they come for you?" Lorana hesitated. "Yes, if they know I'm alive." Jack's jaw tightened. "Then we need to find a way to contact them." Lorana's eyes widened slightly. "That's treason." "Yeah, but you said your people wanted to help Earth." Jack forced a smile. "Maybe it's time someone helped you first." The sirens grew louder, stopping just outside. Lorana gripped his hand. "There's an old comm station north of the city. It can reach my people." "Then that's where we're going," Jack said. Heavy boots thudded outside the door. "Time to choose," Jack whispered. "Run or surrender." Lorana's grip tightened. "Run." The escape. The sound of boots echoed through the narrow hallway outside. The metallic clang of armor, the crackle of radio voices, and the faint hum of charged stun rifles filled the stale air. Jack Harmon stood by the door, heart racing, muscles tense. Beside him, Lorana sat on the edge of the cot, her pale face tight with fear. "They're here," she whispered. Jack didn't answer. He could hear the guards giving quiet orders outside. "Unit 7, cover the back exit. The alien's in here. Orders are clear. Capture the alien alive. Shoot the human if necessary." Jack's stomach turned. His instincts screamed to run. But the door was thick metal, and there were no other obvious exits. He scanned the room. A rusted ventilation duct on the far wall might work, but it was small and sealed with metal bolts. Lorana followed his gaze. "I can get us through that," she said. Jack nodded. "Then let's move." Lorana rose on unsteady legs. She held out her hand, the phase shift key trembling in her palm. The blue light flared weakly. She staggered, knees buckling. Jack caught her. "You're too weak." "I can do it," she gasped. "I just need a moment." The door handle rattled. The lock beeped as the guards began hacking the keypad. No more time. Jack tightened his grip on her waist and half-carried her toward the vent. He kicked aside debris and set her down beside the metal panel. Lorana pressed the glowing key against the bolts. The blue light pulsed, crackling like static. The bolts shimmered, then vanished with a soft hiss. The vent cover dropped to the ground. The door slammed open behind them. "Freeze," a guard shouted. Jack didn't think. He pushed Lorana into the vent. "Go," he barked. Lorana crawled forward. Jack dove in after her just as a stun blast crackled through the air. The heat singed his back. "After them," the guard yelled. The vent was narrow and cold, the metal scraping Jack's elbows. Lorana moved slowly ahead of him, her breath labored. The blue veins under her pale skin glowed faintly with every pulse of the key in her hand. "Keep going," Jack urged. Behind them, the guards fired stun blasts into the vent. Sparks danced along the walls. One blast hit too close, sending a jolt through Jack's limbs. Pain shot down his spine. Come on," he muttered, forcing himself forward. The vent sloped downward. The metal creaked under their weight. Jack felt cold air ahead. "There's an opening," Lorana whispered. The vent ended in a grated floor panel above a lower maintenance corridor. Lorana pressed the key against the grate. The blue light flared again. The metal shimmered and melted away like wax. Lorana dropped through first. Jack followed. The corridor was dimly lit, lined with old pipes and thick cables. Jack helped Lorana to her feet. "Which way to the comm station?" he asked. Lorana closed her eyes. "North, 10 kilometers, near the old spaceport." 10 kilometers, Jack swore softly. They'd never make it on foot with patrols swarming the city. Footsteps thudded in the vent behind them. "Move," Jack said. They sprinted down the corridor, the sound of pursuit close behind. 2 blocks away. They emerged from a maintenance hatch into an alley behind an old warehouse district. The cold night air stung their lungs. Lorana leaned heavily on Jack, her legs trembling. "We need transportation," Jack said, scanning the area. Ahead, an old cargo hauler hovered near a loading dock. Its engine hummed softly, unattended. Jack grinned grimly. "That'll do." He guided Lorana toward the hauler. The driver's door was locked, but Jack pried open a side panel and crossed the wires beneath. The engine sputtered, then roared to life. "Get in," he said. Lorana climbed into the passenger seat, clutching her side. Jack slid into the driver's seat and hit the accelerator. The hauler jerked forward and floated out into the street. Behind them, the warehouse door burst open. Guards stormed out, weapons raised. A crackling voice came through the hauler's radio. "Unit 5, stop that vehicle. Block all routes to the northern sectors." Jack swerved hard, turning into a side street. The hauler groaned in protest. He gripped the wheel tighter. "How do they know where we're going?" he asked. "They don't," Lorana said. "They just know we're heading north. It's the only logical direction for the comm station." Blue lights appeared in the rearview mirror. 2 patrol skimmers shot around the corner behind them. "Hold on." Jack slammed the accelerator. The hauler surged forward, hovering just above the ground. The skimmers accelerated, gaining ground. 1 skimmer fired. A blast hit the hauler's rear panel, sending a jolt through the vehicle. Sparks erupted from the dashboard. "They're disabling the engine," Jack shouted. Lorana's eyes locked on the rearview mirror. "I can stop them." Jack glanced at her. "How?" She didn't answer. She leaned out the passenger window, clutching the phase shift key. The blue light intensified, casting a shimmering glow across the street. Lorana's face twisted with concentration. The lead skimmer fired again. The blast curved midair, bending away from the hauler and slamming into the second skimmer instead. The explosion lit the night sky. The remaining skimmer swerved wildly to avoid the debris. Lorana collapsed back into the seat, gasping for air. Jack gritted his teeth and drove through a narrow archway. The patrol skimmer hesitated, then turned away, losing sight of them. The hauler sputtered as Jack guided it into an old vehicle lot filled with rusted, abandoned transports. He shut off the engine. "Stay low," he said. They crouched between the vehicles as patrol drones passed overhead. The night grew quiet again. Lorana's breath came in shallow gasps. Jack checked her pulse. Her skin was icy. "You're burning yourself out," he said. "The key uses my energy," she whispered. Jack's heart sank. She was sacrificing her strength to protect them. "We can't keep running like this," he said. "We need to reach the comm station. And after that." Lorana hesitated. "If my people respond, they'll come. But they might not trust the signal. After the war, they stopped responding to Earth transmissions." Jack rubbed his temples. "So we're risking our necks for a maybe." "Not just a maybe." Lorana's voice steadied. "If I can reach the station, I can send a direct identity code. They'll know it's me. And if they don't come..." Lorana closed her eyes. "Then I die. And you'll be punished." Jack exhaled slowly. He could walk away now. Let the guards find her. Go back to his simple life as a food vendor. But then he remembered her crouched in that alley, starving while others walked by. He remembered how she'd bent energy to save him. And how, despite everything humans had done to her, she trusted him enough to run. "No turning back now," he said. Lorana opened her eyes. No turning back. The comm station was 10 kilometers away. The patrols were tightening their search, and time was running out. Together, they stood and disappeared into the shadows. The revelation. The night sky above New Terra shimmered with pale green auroras, remnants of the planet's atmospheric shield. Below, in the silent shadows of the abandoned transport lot, Jack Harmon crouched beside Lorana. Her breathing was uneven, and her skin glowed faintly with blue veins pulsing beneath the surface. The energy she had used to bend the patrol blast had taken a heavy toll. "We need to move," Jack said softly. Lorana opened her eyes. The irises were darker now, almost black. "I can go," she whispered. Jack doubted it. But they had no choice. The comm station was still kilometers away, and the patrols were closing in. He helped her to her feet, wrapping her arm over his shoulder. "Lean on me," he said. They moved through the maze of rusted transports, keeping low. Drones passed overhead, their scanners casting red circles across the ground. Jack guided Lorana through the gaps, each step slow and deliberate. The sound of the city sirens had faded, but the danger remained. The hidden roads. Jack led Lorana toward the old maintenance tunnels beneath the industrial sector. Few people remembered the tunnels existed. They were relics from when humans first settled New Terra. Jack's father had worked in these tunnels once, laying pipes and cables before the war. He found a rusted hatch near the edge of the lot and pried it open. The air from below was damp and stale. "In here," he said. Lorana hesitated. "They might have sensors." "Not here," Jack reassured her. "The metal walls block signals." He helped her down the ladder into the dark tunnel. The dim glow of emergency lights lined the corridor like ghostly candles. The floor was slick with condensation. As they moved deeper into the tunnel, Lorana's breathing steadied. "How much further?" she asked. "About 7 kilometers. Lorana leaned against the wall, eyes closed. "The guards know we're heading north." Jack nodded. "Yeah, but they don't know how. They'll figure it out soon." Silence stretched between them. Jack shifted his weight and broke it. "Why does the government care so much about you? It can't just be because you're an alien." Lorana's lips pressed into a thin line. "Because I know something dangerous. Dangerous to humans." "No," she said softly. "Dangerous to the people in power." Jack crossed his arms. Okay, I'm listening. She slid down the wall to sit. The dim light cast shadows across her pale features. Her thin hands trembled as she rubbed her arms. Before the war, she began, my team came here with one goal: to repair Earth's ecosystem. The planet was dying from pollution, overfarming, and failed terraforming projects. My people, the Vayari, have technology that can restore natural balance. We volunteered to help. Jack's brow furrowed. That sounds good. It was, Lorana said. But when war broke out, everything changed. Humans feared aliens. Politicians spread lies. They said we were invading to take Earth. Her voice cracked slightly. Our research was destroyed. My team was hunted. I hid, and I kept one secret. Jack knelt beside her. What secret? She looked at him, eyes glistening. There's a core network buried beneath this city, a dormant environmental system. We were building it to heal Earth's soil and air. If activated, it could start the process. In 10 years, Earth's ecosystems would begin to recover. Jack's mouth went dry. And the government knows about this. They know it exists. They fear it. Lorana's voice hardened. Restoring Earth would end their control. They make billions selling oxygen generators and synthetic food. If Earth recovers naturally, they'd lose their power. Jack sat back, stunned. The endless pollution, the dying oceans, it could all be reversed, and they were willing to let people suffer to maintain control. So the guards are after you, he said, voice tight. Because you can activate it. Yes, Lorana whispered. I know the activation codes. The revelation settled like a weight in Jack's chest. This wasn't just about protecting one alien woman anymore. It was about hope for Earth itself. Footsteps echoed in the tunnel behind them. Lorana stiffened. Jack pulled her to her feet. Come on, he said. The chase. The footsteps quickened. Shadows stretched across the walls as flashlight beams flickered behind them. Move, Jack hissed. They ran, their footsteps splashing through shallow puddles. Lorana stumbled, but Jack kept her upright. The tunnel twisted left, then right. Jack knew if they reached the next maintenance shaft, they could surface near the old industrial railway. A stun blast crackled past them, exploding against the wall in a burst of blue sparks. They're right behind us. Lorana gasped. Almost there. Ahead, a rusted ladder led upward. Jack sprinted toward it. A figure stepped from the shadows to block their path. A tall man in black armor with a captain's insignia. His visor glinted under the tunnel lights. Freeze, the captain barked, aiming his rifle. Jack skidded to a stop. Lorana clutched his arm. The captain's finger tightened on the trigger. Jack lunged forward, pushing Lorana aside. The stun blast struck his shoulder. Pain exploded through his body. He hit the ground, limbs twitching. The captain advanced, gun now aimed at Lorana. Don't move, alien. Lorana stood frozen, eyes locked on the barrel of the weapon. Jack groaned, fighting the paralysis. His muscles refused to obey. The captain's radio crackled. Captain Monroe, report. I have the alien, the captain said into the mic. The human's down. Bring her in alive, the voice responded. Priority 1. Lorana's gaze darted to Jack, then to the captain's weapon. Her hand twitched toward the phase shift key. The captain saw the movement. Don't. Lorana's breathing quickened. Jack saw the terror in her eyes. If she used the key again, it might kill her. But if she didn't, the mission was over. Lorana, don't. Jack groaned. You'll die. Her eyes met his. I won't let them stop this. She raised the key. The captain fired. The blast hit her square in the chest. The phase shift key flared with blinding blue light. The air around Lorana shimmered. The blast bent mid-flight, arcing backward and striking the captain. He screamed as the energy surged through his armor, collapsing to the ground. The tunnel walls groaned. The floor vibrated as the key's energy spiraled outward, cracking concrete. Lorana collapsed beside Jack. He pulled himself up and crawled to her. Her skin was deathly pale, veins glowing brightly under the surface. "Lorana," he said, shaking her. Her eyelids fluttered open. "We need to reach the station." Jack's chest ached as he looked down at her frail form. She had risked everything to save him. He gritted his teeth and stood, lifting her into his arms. The tunnel groaned again as more guards appeared in the distance. Jack turned and ran, cradling Lorana against his chest. The weight of her sacrifice pushed him forward. The comm station was close now. Hope, or death, waited at the end of this night. The Alliance. Jack Harmon's legs burned with each step. His breath came in short, sharp gasps as he carried Lorana through the maze of crumbling tunnels. Her body felt impossibly light, her skin ice-cold against his arm. The blue veins that had pulsed with life beneath her skin were now dim. The phase shift key in her palm no longer glowed. "Stay with me, Lorana," Jack whispered. Her eyelids fluttered. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. The tunnel walls vibrated from distant explosions. The guards were still searching, sealing off every exit. Jack didn't know how much longer they could run. He reached a rusted ladder and shifted Lorana's weight to one arm. With his free hand, he gripped the metal rungs and climbed. The ladder groaned under their combined weight, but held. At the top, he kicked open a metal grate and hauled them into the open air. The night was colder now. They were in an industrial zone just south of the old spaceport. Massive cranes loomed overhead like skeletal giants. Cargo containers lay stacked in uneven piles, rusted and forgotten. In the distance, the faint glow of the comm station beacon pierced the sky like a pale blue dagger. "There it is," Jack murmured. Lorana's eyes opened slightly. She saw the beacon and whispered, "We're close." Jack set her down gently against a metal container. Her breaths were shallow, and her body shivered. The phase shift key slipped from her fingers and clattered to the ground. Jack knelt beside her and placed a hand on her forehead. It was ice cold. "You need help," he said. Lorana gave a weak nod. Jack scanned the area. He couldn't do this alone. He needed someone he could trust, but there were few people left who didn't fear aliens or the government. One name came to mind. Jack pulled out his comm device and typed a code he hadn't used in years. A private line, long dormant, transmitting. Static crackled through the speaker. Jack's heart sank. Maybe the number was dead. Then a voice answered. "Who the hell is this?" Jack's pulse quickened. "Tyler. It's me. Jack." A long silence. Then, "Jack Harmon. Damn, man. It's been years. I thought you went straight." "Yeah, well, I need a favor." "Trouble. Big trouble." Tyler gave a low chuckle. "The kind that involves cops or aliens." "Both." Tyler swore softly. "Where are you?" "Southside Cargo Zone, near Dock 47. "I'll be there in 5. Stay out of sight." The line went dead. Jack exhaled and pocketed the comm. He turned back to Lorana. Her eyes were half closed, her breathing weak. "Help's coming," he said softly. She didn't respond. 5 minutes later, the soft hum of a hoverbike broke the silence. Jack pressed himself against the cargo container, phase shift key clutched in one hand, his stun pistol in the other. A sleek, black hoverbike glided into view, its headlights dimmed. The rider wore a battered leather jacket and a dark visor. The bike stopped a few feet away. "Jack?" the rider asked. Jack stepped into view, gun raised. The rider lifted the visor. Tyler Green's face was thinner than Jack remembered, with more lines around his eyes and a thick scar running from his jaw to his ear. "You look like hell," Tyler said. "Good to see you too." Tyler dismounted. His gaze shifted to Lorana, who lay motionless by the container. "Alien?" Tyler asked. "Yeah." Tyler frowned. "That's risky." Jack's grip on the gun tightened. She's not dangerous. Tyler raised his hands. Didn't say she was. Just said it's risky. He knelt beside her and checked her pulse. His eyes widened. She's burning out. What did she do? Use some kind of energy tech to save us. Tyler swore under his breath. Her species doesn't generate energy like humans do. She's running on empty. She said her people could fix it. Tyler rubbed his jaw. Yeah, if we can reach the comm station. That's the plan. Tyler looked toward the glowing beacon. That place is locked down. Military-grade security. Can you crack it? Tyler gave a lopsided grin. If I can't, no one can. The approach. Jack lifted Lorana onto Tyler's hoverbike. Tyler handed Jack a second helmet. She won't survive much longer, Tyler said. I know. The hoverbike hummed as it lifted off. They wove through the maze of containers, staying low. The comm station loomed larger with each passing second. As they neared the fence surrounding the facility, Tyler cut the engine. This is as close as we get without tripping alarms. The perimeter fence crackled with blue energy. Guard drones hovered at regular intervals, scanning for intruders. Can your tech get us through that? Jack asked. Tyler pulled out a small device, EMP spike. It'll knock out the fence for 30 seconds. That's all we'll have. And the drones. Too many to disable. Tyler's eyes flicked to Lorana. But maybe she can help. Jack knelt beside her. Lorana, I know you're weak, but can you bend their scanners? Her eyelids fluttered open. I can try. Jack squeezed her hand. That's all we need. Tyler placed the EMP device against the fence and activated it. The electric hum ceased with a low hiss. Go, Tyler whispered. They slipped through the gap. The drones instantly adjusted, scanning the area. Lorana raised her trembling hand, the phase shift key glowing faintly. The drone lights wavered. Their sensors shifted direction, as if confused. Hurry, Lorana gasped. They sprinted toward the station's entrance. Tyler hacked the door lock with practiced ease. Inside, the comm room lay at the end of a long corridor. They reached the console, and Tyler connected his device. The screen lit up. Lorana, you need to enter your code, Tyler said. She swayed, barely conscious. Jack lifted her hand and pressed it against the control panel. The phase shift key interfaced with the system. Symbols appeared across the screen, alien and unfamiliar. The comm system crackled to life. Lorana whispered the code in her native tongue. The symbols shifted, then the screen turned green. Signal transmitted. Awaiting response. The seconds stretched painfully. Lorana's breathing slowed. Jack knelt beside her. Hold on. Just hold on. Suddenly, the screen flashed. Connection established. Vayari fleet responding. A voice, calm and melodic, spoke through the speakers. Lorana, is that you? She opened her eyes slightly. Yes, it's me. Stand by. We're tracing your location. Help is on the way. Lorana slumped into Jack's arms. Tyler stared at the screen. I can't believe it. The aliens are actually coming. Outside, the sound of approaching vehicles roared through the night. The guards are here, Jack said. Tyler loaded his pistol. Then let's make sure they don't stop this. The battle was about to begin. The sacrifice. The comm station's screen blinked with the words, Vayari Fleet Inbound, in glowing green text. Lorana lay limp in Jack's arms, her breathing shallow. Her veins, once glowing blue, had faded to a dull pale gray. The phase shift key in her hand no longer emitted its soft hum. Outside, the growl of military vehicles grew louder. Tyler Green adjusted his pistol and peered through the narrow window. 2 armored carriers, 3 patrol skimmers, and a whole squad of guards. He exhaled sharply. They're not here to negotiate. Jack tightened his grip on Lorana. Her fragile body trembled slightly against his chest. They want her alive. She has the codes. Yeah, And they'll kill you and me to get them, Tyler muttered. Jack's jaw tightened. His heart pounded. If the guards stormed the station, it was over. The Vayari fleet might be coming, but time was running out. The comm crackled. The melodic voice from before returned. We have your coordinates. Our ships are minutes away. Hold your position. Jack's pulse quickened. Minutes. They just needed to survive for a few more minutes. Outside, metal doors slammed. Boots crunched against gravel as the guards spread out around the station. Tyler adjusted his pistol's energy settings. We can hold the front door for a bit, but if they breach from the side. A sharp voice boomed through a loudspeaker. Attention, occupants. You are harboring a known enemy of the state. Surrender the alien immediately or face lethal force. Jack glanced at Lorana. Her eyelids fluttered open slightly. I can. Hold them back, she whispered. No, Jack said firmly. You're barely conscious. She struggled to lift the phase shift key. I can bend. The energy fields. Buy time. It'll kill you. Her lips parted in a weak smile. If Earth can be healed, it's worth it. Jack's throat tightened. He remembered the moment he had handed her that first piece of bread in the alley. She had been a stranger then. Now she was a friend. And the key to saving the planet. He shook his head. No. We'll find another way. Tyler's eyes darted between them. We don't have much time to debate. Outside, the guards moved into position. The first attack. The building shuddered as an explosion tore through the front door. Smoke billowed into the comm room. Contact. Tyler shouted, firing into the haze. Bright blue stun bolts streaked through the smoke, slamming into the walls. Jack pulled Lorana behind a steel cabinet and drew his own pistol. Guards in black armor rushed through the doorway. Tyler shot the first one through the visor, sending the guard sprawling backward. Jack fired twice, hitting another in the chest. The energy shields absorbed the first shot, but failed on the second. More guards poured in. Lorana stirred against Jack's chest. I can bend their weapons for a while. Jack hesitated. You're not strong enough. She squeezed his hand. I have to try. He saw the determination in her eyes, the same stubborn will to survive that had kept her alive for years. With a heavy heart, he nodded. Lorana raised the phase shift key. The faint blue light reappeared, flickering like a candle in the wind. Her body convulsed with the effort. The air shimmered. The next wave of stun blasts curved mid-flight, slamming into the walls and floor instead of hitting their targets. The guards shouted in confusion. Tyler grinned. Now that's what I call a trick. He fired again, hitting two guards while their weapons misfired. Jack followed, dropping another. Push forward, Jack yelled. They advanced through the smoke. Lorana stayed behind, sitting with her back against the console, her hands trembling as she directed the key's energy. Outside, the roar of engines signaled more reinforcements. They brought drones. Tyler shouted, pointing toward the sky. Jack saw 3 sleek drones hovering near the roof, each one armed with twin cannons. The drones locked onto the building. Take cover, Jack shouted. The drones fired. Streams of plasma bolts shattered the walls. The floor shook beneath them. Lorana cried out as she tried to bend the drone blasts. The blue field extended upward, causing some shots to veer off course. But more blasts struck the building. Concrete cracked. The ceiling sagged. Jack grabbed Lorana and pulled her toward the back of the room. The phase shift key sparked in her hands. Her veins pulsed with faint blue light. Sweat dripped down her face. I can't hold it much longer, she gasped. Jack's mind raced. If the drones destroyed the comm station, the Vayari signal would be lost. The fleet would arrive to find nothing. Tyler, we need to hit those drones, Jack said. Tyler pointed to the roof access ladder. We go up. Manual targeting. It's risky. Risky is all we've got. Jack turned to Lorana. Stay here. Focus on bending the blasts. Just for a little longer. Lorana gave a weak nod. Jack and Tyler sprinted toward the ladder. Plasma bolts hissed through the walls, leaving molten craters in the concrete. The rooftop fight. The cold night air hit them as they emerged onto the roof. The drones hovered 20 meters away, scanning the building below. Tyler knelt beside a rusted air vent and aimed his pistol. "These drones have weak sensor nodes," he said. "Hit the red lights on the front." Jack took a deep breath, steadied his hand, and fired. His blast struck one drone's sensor node. The machine shuddered, lights flickering, then spiraled out of control and crashed into the ground. The remaining drones turned toward the roof. "Oh, Dan," Tyler muttered. The drones fired. Jack and Tyler dove behind the air vent. Metal exploded around them. "They'll tear us apart," Tyler shouted. The drone bolts curved mid-flight, just slightly. Lorana was still bending the energy, but barely. "We need to finish this before she collapses," Jack said. He rolled out from cover and fired 3 rapid shots at the second drone. The first 2 missed. The third hit the sensor node. The drone exploded in midair. The third drone unleashed a barrage of plasma fire. Jack ducked, but heat scorched his arm. His pistol skidded across the roof. Tyler fired desperately, but the drone's shields held. Below, Lorana screamed. Jack looked down. Through the shattered roof panels, he saw her slumped against the console. The phase shift key's blue light was almost gone. She was dying. The drone powered its main cannon, aiming directly at the comm array. "If it destroys the array, the fleet won't find us." Jack's eyes locked on the drone. He saw the faint shimmer of energy as Lorana tried to bend the blast. "She doesn't have enough strength left." Jack made his choice. He sprinted across the roof toward the drone. "Jack!" Tyler shouted. The drone's cannon fired. The plasma blast shot toward the comm array. Jack leaped into the blast's path. The plasma struck him square in the chest. Pain exploded through his body. He felt the heat rip through his ribs. The force knocked him backward. The blast curved slightly, just enough to miss the comm array. The drone paused, recharging. Tyler roared in anger. He stood and fired 3 perfect shots. The last drone exploded in a shower of sparks. Tyler ran to Jack's side. Blood pooled beneath his burnt jacket. "Jack, stay with me." Jack coughed. Each breath was agony. "Is the comm still active?" Tyler glanced at the array. "Yeah, it's still running." Jack gave a weak smile. "Good." Through the hole in the roof, Jack saw Lorana collapse against the console. The phase shift key fell from her hand, dark and cold. The radio crackled with a new sound, a deep, resonating hum. Tyler's eyes widened. "Look!" In the sky above, 5 massive ships appeared from the clouds, sleek, silver, and glowing with blue energy. The Vayari fleet had arrived. Jack closed his eyes, relief washing over him. "We made it," he whispered. The last thing he felt was Lorana's hand gripping his. And then everything faded. The resolution. Darkness swallowed Jack Harmon. He floated in an endless void, his body weightless, his thoughts fractured. The last thing he remembered was the blinding blast from the drone cannon, the burning heat, the sound of Lorana's voice calling his name through the pain. Somewhere in the distance, a rhythmic beeping pulsed. Beep, beep, beep. His mind latched onto the sound, pulling him upward through the void. Beep, beep, beep. Light pierced the darkness. With a sharp gasp, Jack opened his eyes. The ceiling above him wasn't metal or concrete. It shimmered softly, smooth and translucent, glowing with pale blue light that shifted like the surface of a calm ocean. He turned his head. The bed beneath him felt soft, almost like liquid, but it supported his weight. Transparent tubes ran from his chest to a cylindrical device beside the bed. The rhythmic beeping came from that machine. The pain was gone. His heart raced as memories rushed back. The comm station, the drones, Lorana collapsing at the console. Where was she? He sat up too fast. The tubes pulled against his skin, sending a jolt of discomfort through his ribs. A sharp hiss of pain escaped his lips. "Easy," a familiar voice said from the doorway. Jack turned. Tyler Green stood there, leaning casually against the wall. His leather jacket was torn, his face smeared with soot, but he was alive. Jack exhaled a shaky breath. "Tyler, where are we?" Tyler stepped into the room, nodding toward the window. "Take a look." Jack swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood. His legs wobbled, but he managed to walk to the window. The view made him stop breathing. They were in space. Below them, Earth turned slowly against the blackness of space, but it wasn't the Earth Jack knew. The atmosphere glimmered with shimmering green and blue bands. Swirling storms faded into calm spirals. Vast areas of brown, dead land now glowed with faint traces of green. "We're aboard the Vayari flagship," Tyler said. "Orbiting Earth." Jack pressed his hands against the glass. "Earth, it looks different." Tyler smiled. "Yeah, it's changing." Jack turned sharply. "Where's Lorana?" Tyler's smile faded. "She's alive." "Barely." Jack's chest tightened. "Take me to her." The recovery chamber. Tyler led Jack through sleek, curved hallways that glowed with soft light. The walls hummed faintly, and the air smelled crisp and fresh. They stopped at a wide doorway. The door dissolved into mist, revealing a large medical chamber. In the center of the room, Lorana lay on a raised platform. She was surrounded by cylindrical devices that emitted soft blue fields of energy. Her skin was translucent, veins glowing faintly beneath the surface. Her chest rose and fell with slow, shallow breaths. A tall Vayari male stood beside her. His skin was pale blue, with faint ridges along his temples. His eyes glowed softly as he turned to face Jack. "You are Jack Harmon," the Vayari said. His voice was deep and smooth, each word carefully pronounced. Jack nodded. "Yes, I am Thalen, Chief Medical Officer. Your friend Lorana used all of her life energy to protect you. She is still with us, but she is near the threshold." Jack's throat tightened. "Can you save her?" Thalen hesitated. "We are trying. Her body needs time to regenerate. The phase shift key took too much." Jack walked to Lorana's side. Her hand lay limp on the bed. He took it gently in his own. "Lorana," he whispered, "we made it. Your people are here. Earth is changing. You did it." Her eyelids fluttered. Her lips moved slightly. Jack leaned closer. "Jack." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm here," he said. Her eyes opened, unfocused at first. Then she saw him and smiled faintly. "The planet." He squeezed her hand. The Vayari activated the core network. "The atmosphere's already stabilizing. They say in a few years, Earth's soil will start to heal." Her eyes filled with tears. "Good." Jack swallowed hard. "Now you need to heal." "I'm tired." "I know, but don't give up now." He brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "Earth needs you. I need you." She gave a faint nod. The machines around her pulsed faster as her body responded. Thalen stepped forward. "Her energy signature is stabilizing." Jack didn't let go of her hand. The fleet's message. Hours later, after Lorana's breathing grew stronger, Jack and Tyler were summoned to the Vayari command center. The command deck was vast and open, with walls that projected holographic images of Earth below. At the center stood a tall Vayari woman with silver hair and eyes that glowed like twin stars. "I am Commander Saris," she said, voice calm but commanding. "You are the human who saved our scientist." Jack tipped his head. "I just did what anyone should have done." Commander Saris smiled faintly. "If that were true, your world would not have reached this state." She gestured toward the image of Earth below. "For generations, we tried to help Earth recover. But your leaders rejected us. They feared losing control." Jack's fists clenched. "They spread lies, said aliens were invaders. Cyrus nodded. Fear is a powerful weapon. Tyler crossed his arms. What happens now? Cyrus turned toward the Earth projection. The core network is active. It will cleanse the atmosphere and restore balance to the soil and oceans. Over the next decade, Earth will heal. The planet will breathe again. Jack exhaled slowly. And the government. Their lies will not survive the truth. We have transmitted a global message. Cyrus tapped a control panel. A holographic broadcast appeared. On screens across Earth, images showed the core network's activation. The broadcast revealed footage of humans walking past starving aliens. It showed Lorana's research, the hidden core network blueprints, and the government's secret memos admitting they had concealed the technology to maintain their power. Jack's mouth dropped open. You exposed them. Cyrus inclined her head. The truth belongs to everyone. The broadcast ended with an image of Earth transforming, deserts turning green, skies turning clear. The people of Earth will demand change, Cyrus said. We hope. They will choose cooperation. The awakening. Days later, Jack sat beside Lorana's bed again. Her eyes opened slowly. You stayed, she whispered. Jack smiled. Always. Lorana looked past him toward the window. Earth rotated below, green growing where deserts once ruled. It's beautiful, she said. It's your work, Jack said softly. You gave Earth a second chance. She turned back to him. I couldn't have done it without you. Jack squeezed her hand. We did it together. A single tear traced down Lorana's cheek. Outside the window, Earth's blue skies shone brighter than they had in decades. Epilogue. 1 year later. The markets of New Terra were different now. Humans and aliens walked side by side. Vendors sold fresh fruits from newly restored farmlands. The air smelled clean. The sky above was a brilliant, clear blue. Jack stood at his food cart, handing a steaming bread roll to a Vayari child. The child giggled, thanked him, and ran off. Lorana stood beside Jack, her skin vibrant and healthy again. The phase shift key, now dormant, hung around her neck like a pendant. Still feeding strangers, she teased. Jack grinned. Of course, it all started with a piece of bread, didn't it? Lorana smiled and leaned into his side. Above them, a broadcast played on a street screen. It showed images of the healed Earth, the partnership between humans and Vayari, and a simple message. Hope began with compassion. Jack and Lorana exchanged a glance. The future was here, and it was beautiful.